Step out of the car. Now. Officer Daniel Haskins stood beside the black sedan, with one hand resting on his holster, and the other holding a flashlight low against the driver's window. The beam cut across the dashboard, the leather seats, and the calm face of the man behind the wheel. "Sir, I asked you to step out," Haskins said again. "This vehicle doesn't match your explanation." The man kept both hands visible on the steering wheel. His voice stayed level. "Officer, I'm not refusing anything, but I need you to tell me why I've been stopped." Haskins gave a short, sharp laugh. "Because a car like this doesn't usually belong to someone like you." The words hung in the humid night air. The driver looked at him for a second, then reached slowly toward the glove compartment. Haskins reacted instantly. "Don't move!" He yanked the door open before the driver could speak. The metal slammed against the curb with a hard crack. A couple standing near the gas station entrance turned their heads. A teenager near the ice machine lifted his phone and started recording. Another man in a work shirt glanced over, smirked, and kept walking. A woman with grocery bags lowered her eyes and hurried past, like she had learned long ago not to get involved. "Hands out of the car," Haskins barked. The driver pulled them back into view. "Officer, my license and registration are in my jacket pocket. If you let me reach for them, I'll show you." Haskins ignored him, leaned in, and grabbed the ignition key from the console. "Step out." Now the man exhaled once, slow and controlled, and opened the door. That was the moment the officer decided he had found a problem. He had no idea he was standing beside a federal warrant file that had already been signed, sealed, and routed through 3 agencies. And he had no idea the man he was treating like a suspect was not only a licensed attorney, but the lead counsel on the warrant he had just triggered. In 47 minutes, Daniel Haskins would learn exactly what kind of mistake he had made. But this story doesn't start here. Rewind. 3 hours earlier, Marcus Ellison had been in his downtown office, tying the cuff of his navy shirt and glancing at the framed photograph on his desk. In the picture, he stood beside his father outside a brick post office in East Texas, both of them smiling like they had earned something no one could take away. His father had spent 40 years carrying mail in the heat and rain. He had never lived to see Marcus make partner. Marcus looked at that photograph every morning. At 46 years old, he had spent 20 years building the kind of legal career most people only read about. He was senior counsel with the Federal Civil Rights Enforcement Unit in Dallas, a man whose name had appeared on appellate briefs, injunction requests, and disciplinary referrals that made entire departments uneasy. When officers crossed the line, his office was often the one that pulled the record apart and made it speak. That evening, he was not thinking about work. He was thinking about dinner. He had promised his sister he would stop by their mother's house after leaving the office, pick up the collard greens she had made, and spend an hour with her before heading home. That was all. A simple evening, a quiet one. The kind of evening nobody notices unless something goes wrong. And something had gone wrong. Across town, inside the district headquarters, a folder marked Ellison. Marcus had already been flagged for delivery. It contained a federal warrant linked to the internal corruption review that had been unfolding for 7 months. The case centered on a narcotics sergeant named Rylan Mercer, a decorated officer with a reputation for aggressive stops, proud speeches about clean streets, and a complaint history that had somehow never stuck. Mercer had 3 commendations for public pressure initiatives. He had been Officer of the Year once. 2 of his promotions had come after supervisors praised him for taking initiative in high crime zones. And behind all of that sat a pattern that every internal reviewer on the case had recognized immediately. 19 complaints. 9 were closed without interviews. 6 were assigned to supervisors who had trained with Mercer. 4 vanished into administrative review, and came back unsigned. No disciplinary hearing had ever reached a conclusion. The department had protected him because he was useful. He stopped people hard. He created the appearance of control. He made nervous supervisors feel safer. That night, the warrant had nothing to do with Marcus's dinner plans. But it was about to. By the time Marcus reached the gas station on his way to his mother's house, the sky had gone black and thick with summer heat. He had driven the same black sedan for 6 years. It was clean, paid off, and boring enough to avoid attention in every city block, except the ones where attention was the problem. He had parked near the side lot to make a quick call before going inside. That was when Daniel Haskins saw him. Haskins had been on patrol since noon, irritated, tired, and already looking for something to justify the stop his supervisor had suggested he make if an opportunity comes up. He spotted the sedan, saw a black man in a tailored shirt in the driver's seat, and decided the opportunity had arrived. He walked over with the confidence of a man who had been rewarded too many times for being wrong. "Let me see your license and registration," he had said. Marcus had handed them over without protest. Haskins looked at the documents, then back at Marcus. "This car's registered to a law firm downtown." "Yes," Marcus said. "It's mine." Haskins' mouth tightened. "Who'd you borrow it from?" "I didn't borrow it." "You expect me to believe that?" Marcus kept his voice steady. "I expect you to read the registration, and if you'd like, I can explain why I'm here." Haskins didn't read anything. He didn't ask a question. He simply looked at the car, looked at Marcus, and chose suspicion over facts. That choice was the first mistake. The second mistake was reaching for the door. Now the scene had become a small, hard circle of light, flashing phones, and held breath. The teenager recording from the ice machine whispered, "Bro, he's really doing this." The man in the work shirt shook his head as if amused by the whole thing. The woman with the grocery bags disappeared around the far side of the building without ever turning back. Marcus stood still. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for the officer. He counted, silently, exactly how many rights were being ignored. "You're detaining me without probable cause," he said. "You've refused to review my registration, and now you're opening my vehicle without consent." Haskins stared at him. "Do you think I care about your legal speech right now?" Marcus looked him in the eye. "You should care about your report." That made Haskins smile. "Turn around." Marcus didn't move. A second patrol unit rolled into the lot. Officer Price climbed out first, younger than Haskins, but already carrying the same posture of practiced certainty. He looked at the black man standing beside the black sedan and the older officer with his hand near his weapon, and he made his choice in under 2 seconds. "What's the issue?" Price asked. "Possible stolen vehicle," Haskins said. Marcus let that sit there. "Possible," he repeated. Haskins didn't answer. The warrant packet was still on its way downtown, but none of these officers knew that. They only knew they had a man in a nice shirt, a car that looked too clean, and each other. That was enough for them. Haskins reached again. Marcus stepped back, palms open, visible, calm. "Do not touch me without cause." "You're resisting now," Haskins said. "I'm not resisting. I'm asking you to follow procedure." Price circled the car once, glanced at the registration, and frowned at the name on it. Marcus Ellison. The name meant nothing to him. To Haskins, it meant even less. They saw a black man in a good car, and built the rest out of habit. 41 minutes. That was how long it would take for the first call to come in from the district attorney's office confirming the warrant routing. But in the lot, all anyone could see was Haskins moving closer, Price coming in from the passenger side, and Marcus being told to place his hands on the roof of the sedan. He did. He spread his fingers. He leaned forward. Everything by the book. Haskins patted him down too hard, slid a hand into the inside pocket of Marcus's jacket, and pulled out a leather wallet. Inside were a state bar card, a federal access credential, and a folded card for the clerk's office with a notation in red ink. Haskins looked at the bar card, then flipped it over as if the back might be more useful than the front. What is this supposed to be? It's my identification. You a lawyer? Yes. Price gave a short laugh. Of course he is. Marcus said nothing. Haskins kept the wallet open, staring at the federal credential like it might be a trick. This doesn't mean anything. It means I'm licensed to practice in federal court. Not tonight, Haskins said. He put the wallet in his pocket. That should have been the moment the officers realized they had crossed into something they didn't understand. Instead, it made them bolder, because now they had taken property, and nothing had happened. No supervisor had interrupted. No correction had come. No one had told them to stop. That silence did its usual work. It taught them they were safe. Marcus asked once for the sergeant on duty. Haskins ignored him. He asked again, more quietly. Price said, "You'll talk when we say talk." By then, the teenager's phone was live. Comments were already arriving. Did he do anything? Why they got him on the ground like that? Another black man minding his business, and here we go. None of the officers noticed the screen. None of them noticed the woman inside the convenience store turning her head to watch through the glass. None of them noticed the clerk reaching for his own phone. They were too busy deciding how this night was going to end. At 8:14 p.m., Sergeant Mercer himself arrived. The name on the door of the second unit was not yet enough to matter. Mercer stepped out with the easy, rolling confidence of a man who had been backed up too many times. His badge caught the light. His jaw was set. He took one look at Marcus and decided this had already become a problem he expected to win. "What are we doing here?" Mercer asked. Haskins looked relieved to have him. Suspicious vehicle. Possible stolen car. Subjects being difficult. Marcus looked at Mercer and felt the smallest pull of recognition. Not from the lot. From the file. The name Mercer had appeared in one of the complaints attached to the warrant review. Not as the target. As the officer who had moved too fast, written too little, and made witnesses disappear. Mercer turned to Marcus. "You can cooperate now, or we can take the long road." Marcus answered evenly. "I've cooperated. I'm still waiting for a legal reason." Mercer smiled like that was adorable. "Legal reason? You're parked in a half-lit lot in a part of town where people report stolen cars every night. That's the reason." "And if I were white," Marcus said, "would that still be your reason?" Price shifted his weight. Haskins looked annoyed. Mercer's face hardened. "You want to make this about race?" Marcus said. "You already did." That line landed in the wrong room. Mercer stepped forward, close enough that Marcus could smell coffee and sweat on the officer's uniform. "Turn around." Marcus didn't. Mercer's hand went to his shoulder. The teenager filming gasped. "Yo." And then everything moved at once. Haskins took Marcus's arm. Price reached for the other. Mercer shoved him toward the car. Marcus braced, not to fight, but to keep from being slammed face first into the hood for no reason other than their temper. His shoulder struck metal. The sound was sharp, ugly, final. He did not shout. He did not swing. He said, through the pressure of 3 hands and one hard edge of steel, "I am asking for a supervisor and counsel." Mercer leaned in and muttered, "You should have thought about that before you got cute." 40 minutes. That was how long it would be before Internal Affairs opened the warrant file and noticed that Marcus Ellison was not just a lawyer. He was the attorney whose name was already on the Federal Review memo sitting in the case queue. But the lot didn't know that. All the lot knew was what it could see. A black man being forced against a car. An officer grinning, another officer filming nothing but his own comfort, a phone recording everything. Marcus was handcuffed behind his back. The cuffs were too tight. He said so once. Haskins replied, then stopped moving. He was searched again. His pockets were emptied. His phone was taken. His watch came off his wrist. His wallet was opened a second time, then tossed onto the passenger seat like evidence of nothing. Mercer glanced at the bar card and snorted. You lawyers always think a title changes what's in front of us. Marcus looked at him. It does when the law's involved. Mercer laughed again. Not tonight. They put him in the back of the patrol unit. The metal seats were hot enough to sting through his shirt. His mother's dinner sat cold in the trunk of his car beside the curb, and he knew, with a strange and very clear anger, that all of this would be remembered by somebody who had never carried a set of cuffs in his life. Inside the station, the booking room smelled like bleach and old coffee. Marcus sat straight-backed on the bench, while a jailer read charges that sounded ridiculous even as they were typed into a form. Resisting, obstructing, suspicion of auto theft, interfering with an investigation. He asked to make his phone call. He was told to wait. He asked again. He was told to wait. And then, finally, the call was made. Not to a public defender, not to a family member, to a federal clerk he had known for 11 years. By then, the warrant packet had reached the same terminal where a red flag appeared beside the case file. The clerk saw the name. The assistant U.S. attorney saw the name. Then both of them saw the stop report coming in from the gas station. Everything changed. At 8:53 p.m., the first message went out from Marcus's office to the rest of the review team. At 8:56 p.m., a supervising attorney confirmed the warrant chain. At 9:02 p.m., Internal Affairs requested the body camera download. At 9:07 p.m., the district attorney's office called for Mercer to report to command. And at 9:11 p.m., his calm began to fail. Back at the station, Mercer was still speaking as if he had already won. He sat across from a desk, one boot crossed over the other, and told a junior detective that the subject had been belligerent, uncooperative, and probably driving on borrowed credentials. He was still talking when the detective's desk phone rang. He was still talking when the detective's face changed. He was still talking when the detective put the call on speaker. Sergeant Mercer, the voice on the other end, said, "Step into my office immediately." Mercer frowned. "I'm in the middle of a report." Now, he stood, annoyed more than concerned. That changed in the hallway, because there was another voice there now, a quieter one, a voice with authority that didn't need volume to work. "Sergeant Mercer." He stopped. Deputy Chief Alina Vaughn stood by the file cabinet, with a manila folder tucked under one arm. She was not smiling. Her eyes went from Mercer to the report in her hand and back again. "You stopped Marcus Ellison," she said. Mercer blinked. "You know him?" Her face did not move. "Oh, I know exactly who he is." For the first time that night, Mercer looked uncertain. Vaughn opened the folder. Inside was the federal warrant he had not been told about. His name was on it. His own name. Below it, in clean legal type, were the words that made the hallway go silent. Target of review: unlawful detentions, evidence falsification, civil rights violations, pattern of retaliatory stops. Mercer's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Vaughn looked at him as if she had been waiting years for this exact moment. "You put your hands on the attorney assigned to your case," she said, "and you did it in front of a live stream." Mercer stared. Then he laughed once, a strange reflexive sound that had no humor in it at all. "That's not possible." Vaughn held the folder higher. It's signed. Mercer's face drained. Not slowly. All at once. He looked at the paper, then at the hallway, then at the door to the booking room, like maybe Marcus Ellison would vanish if he looked hard enough. He didn't. The deputy chief's voice stayed level. Your body camera footage has already been preserved. Your stop report is being compared line by line against the warrant review. You have 1 minute to hand over your sidearm. Mercer took a step back. No. Vaughn didn't raise her voice. You're done. That was the line the hallway remembered. You're done. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just certain. Mercer's hand went to his badge, as if he could keep it by touch alone. Then, the second body in the hallway moved. Officer Price had followed him out. Pale and sweating now, the paper from the gas station stopped still in his hand. He looked from Vaughn to Mercer and understood, maybe for the first time in his career, that being near power was not the same as being protected by it. He told us he had ID, Price said quietly. Mercer turned on him. Don't start. Price swallowed. He did. Vaughn didn't look at him. She was still watching Mercer. Your report will address that, she said, in detail. A commander from Internal Affairs arrived 5 minutes later with a sealed evidence bag and a recorder already running. 2 more supervisors came after that. Then a federal liaison. Then the kind of silence that only comes when a department realizes the story is no longer theirs to control. Marcus was released from the holding area by 9:38 p.m. He walked out without speaking to the cameras. He did not smile. He did not raise his hands in victory. He stood under the harsh white light outside the station, looked at the gathered reporters, and said only this: I asked for the law to be followed. That should never have been unusual. The line spread faster than anything Mercer or Haskins had ever said in their lives. Inside the building, Mercer was being escorted to a small interview room where his gun, his badge, and his confidence were all taken from him in the same motion. Haskins was pulled from duty before midnight. Price was placed on administrative leave pending review. The footage from the gas station was copied, time-stamped, and sent to federal prosecutors before sunrise. The next morning, the district office issued a statement, then a second statement, then a third, each one shorter than the first because there was less and less to defend. The video had already been seen by millions. The teenager who filmed it got interviewed before lunch. The woman with the grocery bags came forward after that and described everything she had heard. The man in the work shirt deleted his laugh from the internet and said he hadn't realized the situation was that serious. Nobody believed him. Nobody needed to. By Friday, Mercer's commendations were under review. By the following Tuesday, his suspension became a termination notice. 3 of the complaints buried in his file were reopened. 2 more witnesses finally agreed to testify. The department that had protected him for years was now answering questions it had spent years avoiding. And Marcus? Marcus went back to work. He took meetings. He reviewed the warrant chain. He signed the filings that followed. He did not make the story about himself. But when asked, at a closed briefing 2 weeks later, why he had not identified himself immediately, he answered without anger. Because the next person he stops won't be a lawyer with a federal file behind him, he said. And if I have to announce my title to be treated with dignity, then the system is already broken. That room went still. Deputy Chief Vaughn was promoted to interim command authority within the month. Officer Price was reassigned to a training unit and ordered to testify in the administrative hearing. He did testify. His statement did not save him, but it did mark the first time he had told the truth about what happened in that lot. The teenager who filmed the stop posted an apology for laughing while it happened, then used the same account to document other incidents in the neighborhood. Small change. Real change. The woman with the grocery bags sent an anonymous donation to the legal defense fund Marcus had quietly helped start years earlier. She never signed her name to it. She didn't need to. Mercer lost his badge, his certification, and eventually the appeal he filed to keep his pension intact. The court found the stop unlawful. The federal review widened. His career ended not in a blaze, but in paperwork. That is how it should have ended all along. On a quiet Sunday evening, Marcus sat on his mother's porch with his sister beside him and a plate of cold food on the table between them. The sun was going down over the neighborhood. The air had cooled enough to breathe. His sister asked if he regretted stopping. He looked out at the street for a long moment before answering. "No," he said. "I regret how common it still is." She nodded because she understood exactly what he meant. The house was still. The porch light flickered on. Somewhere in town, another officer was filling out a report. Somewhere else, another citizen was deciding whether to speak up or keep walking. The system had changed a little. It had not changed enough. Marcus leaned back in the chair, tired now in the deep way only honest work can make a person tired, and folded his hands. Until the system changes, somebody has to be watching. If this story made you feel something, don't let it pass you by. Share it with someone who understands why dignity should never have to be defended with paperwork. Leave a comment with the one question this story raises for you. What should happen when the people sworn to protect the law are the first ones to break it? That answer matters more than a headline. It matters more than a badge. It matters because justice is not a feeling. It is a practice.